Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that's not talked about very often. It's called the dark night of the soul. Ooh, that sounds so dark and gloomy. The dark night of the soul. It's actually not a bad thing at all. Any healthy individual is going to go through the dark night of the soul at least once in their life. Here goes. If your life is compared to a boat on the ocean, the dark night of the soul is that perfect storm that hurls you onto the proper course so that you become the person you're meant to become. The dark night of the soul is an event or a set of events that completely brings down your previous unquestionable truths, your old ways, your conditioned habits, because it turns out on a particular day or a particular year in your life that your old ways, the old ways of depending on a man for support just will not work. Here's the way the dark night of the soul begins. Every single one of us is born in a household. In the first 7 years of our life, our brain is actually in alpha mode, meaning as we grow up, we are totally open to what the parents and older caretakers are teaching us. We copy their beliefs, we copy their perspectives, their behaviors, and their habits. By the time we're 7, we have inherited some unquestionable truths, beliefs, and behavioral patterns from the people who raised us. This could include the grade school sports teacher, or the principal, or mom and dad, grandpa, grandma, and your siblings. These inherited, unquestionable truths about sexuality, about your body, whether you're worthwhile or not, whether you're going to be lucky in love or not, whether God's paying attention to you. All of these unquestionable truths, I would say 80% of them, are inherited from the previous generation and adult caregivers around you. So by the time you're 7 or 9 years old, these beliefs, these behaviors are hardwired in you. Now, here's where the dark night of the soul comes in. There comes a year, a day, a month, where the circumstances of your life have changed and your old belief systems, ways of being, will just not meet the needs of the moment. So here's the selfish guy with the leather interior sports car. The little baby's born and he smears the chocolate on the seat, and this new father has to change his old ways of being. Typically, the dark night of the soul comes on gradually. So you listen to people saying, this job feels like a golden handcuff. I'm getting paid a lot, but I'm just not growing. Or you hear a woman say, I've been in this marriage for 10 years now, and we're just wondering why we're not having a kid. And the more I think about it, this man is not the one that I want to have a baby with. So you start getting these hints that something about your current life is just not working anymore. Compare that statement to your foot outgrowing a shoe, and that shoe just won't fit. So if you are a healthy adult, at some point you're going to outgrow your old ways of thinking, acting, and living. Now, the actual dark night of the soul many times happens in one moment. In other words, you go to the office, there's a corporate downsizing, you lose your job. And all your life, you've been in love with Vermont and staying at a bed and breakfast. You are so devastated by being fired, you go to Vermont with your family to stay at a bed and breakfast. You realize the bed and breakfast is up for sale, and a year later, you have become an innkeeper and a chef in Vermont, whereas before you were an investment banker in New York. Or the alcoholic goes home and all the closets are empty, wife and children have left. She has warned you to put away alcohol. There's been so much abuse. You go back home one day, the whole house is empty, they're gone. That's the dark night of the soul. Or you've been trying to get along in your little city, you're trying to grow, or your city or your country are just too stifling. So one day you just pack your bags and you immigrate to a different state, city, or country. So the actual storm, the actual dark night of the soul happens in a particular moment, although you've been building up to it beforehand. Once the dark night of the soul happens, let's compare your life to a boat on the ocean, okay? Once that huge storm comes, you are already in the process of changing. In other words, if you lose your job, go to Vermont and looking for the next solution, you're already a changed person. Or the single mom, once she comes out of divorce court and she goes home with her kid as a single mom, she is already in the process of changing. There's no going back to that old husband and apologizing and undoing the divorce. Because you're already in the process of changing, you might feel very, very insecure. Why? Because these layers and layers and layers of old beliefs, habits, and perspectives are just shedding. You're shedding skin. And that brings about a sense of insecurity. In these cases, you should hang on to any people or activities that bring you some sort of stability. Let's say you have a habit or a hobby that centers you. Let's say hugging your child centers you. Let's say going off hiking in nature centers you. Some people do centering prayer and meditation. So while you're going through the dark night of the soul, hang on to people and activities that act like an anchor, because you are peeling and peeling and peeling. Now I have some good news for you. When you're going through the dark night of the soul, you're actually peeling away to find a true, authentic, powerful self who has always been there. You see, a lot of people think that if they're going through a massive personal transformation, and if everything comes to a head, and they go through a dark night of the soul, they think that they have to reinvent themselves into a new person. That's nonsense. You have always had unique talents, unique beauty, unique tendencies. That true self has been in you. It's just that what happens the first 7 to 9 years, you start to take on the previous generations, habits, beliefs, perspectives. So your true self gets dusted over. What I'm saying, in the dark night of the soul, your little boat gets hurled onto a new course. And on that new course, you start shedding layers and layers of false selves. And inside you, there's a true self with your true talents, your true tendencies, what you are passionate about, what you have always been good at. Some people say, well, that's for other people. I'm kind of mediocre. That does not exist. I have met more than 10,000 people in 27 years on 3 continents as I travel around as a meditation master and a guide to personal transformation. I have never, ever met a person who is totally mediocre without any unique talents, qualities, and strengths. That does not exist. The dark night of the soul triggers a life review. This is without judgment. As you're going through that massive change, typically you will review broken relationships. Who were the people who really loved you? Any business opportunities that you gained or you lost? Any life lessons that you learned? Any mistakes that you made more than once? Imagine you're in the middle of this perfect storm And in the middle of the storm, you have this life review. You kind of, the past passes by you, and you see relationships that you broke or built, businesses that you ruined or built, lessons that you learned and lessons that you haven't learned, an entire life review. Within that life review, within the dark night of the soul, you also will have awakenings. This is like the abused lady who finally speaks up, hands her abusive, violent husband to the police, and the next day she wakes up and she realizes that she has a voice, she has strength, she has courage. This is like the actor who's been rejected in 200 auditions, and then one day he gets the role and he just wakes up and he realizes that I have always had this talent. I just didn't know how to go about presenting myself. So dark night of the soul has an awakening. You wake up to your worthiness. You wake up to your hidden talents. You wake up to the fact that the Creator has always been watching over you and has been hinting at you to get out of that abusive relationship, to get out of that job that presents no growth to you. So there will be an awakening, and there is a powerful, beautiful self inside you. You do not need to reinvent yourself while you're going through the dark night of the soul. Here, I want to give you the example of India's leader of the independence movement, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a very insecure, fearful little boy. And then at one point, he went to London, England, to become a fine British gentleman. So he bought a white suit. He even took foxtrot classes. He went to a fancy university to become a fancy British gentleman. And then slowly but surely, he started to peel that stuff off. Eventually, he found his truth in the scriptures called the Bhagavad Gita. Eventually, he started to spin the cloth and wear his own Indian garb. Eventually, he realized that India needs to be set free, and he became the leader of India's independent movement. Mother Teresa went through the same pattern. Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, all of these people already had a beautiful, powerful, creative self, because the force that created you in less than 40 weeks has endowed you with some powers, some talents, some tendencies. And that self is already inside you. The dark night of the soul is perfectly designed by the creative force. Something major happens, like immigration, job change, professional change, divorce, and you get hurled onto a new course. And that course seems painful because you are peeling, you are changing your old ways. Everything around you is shifting. And then suddenly you realize that the dark night of the soul is grace in disguise. Godspeed. I wish you safe travels. God bless.